she has a lot of the same visions that Harambe does. So we welcome to the airways our special guest for the evening, Brother Joseph Carswell. Welcome to Harambe Radio, my brother.
Thank you, my brother.
Well, let me say this. I heard your show, Illuminating the Dark Fields. I found it quite interesting. I like the way you really got in people's faces. And I was just talking about getting in people's faces. Sometimes people call it aggressive. They don't like when somebody says, you worried about that. You probably don't want to hear from me. And I like how you referred back to people, some of you ain't going to like what I'm getting ready to say. And that's the truth. Tonight you got 3 specific areas that some people who may want to protect the people you're talking about or question it, well, I suggest they get a pen and do some research because you're going to bring the thunder. First and foremost, brother, before we get into those subjects, give the family a little bit of background about why you are the way you are with your energy, because most people know how we roll at Harambe because we want to uplift people. What made you want to reach out to people, not only as a motivational speaker, which I share with you, brother, but to bring it to the airwaves so people can know there's a better way of handling their business?
Well, definitely, because when we look at the situation in the world today, we look at the social, political, and economic climate, and the way that our people have been dumbed down, in particular the last 30, 40 years in this country. I just felt it my duty, to bring light, to the situation. And because, especially so many of our young people today, they are blinded and led by popular culture and not knowing the figures in popular culture are not their quote unquote friends, or they are not people to be, looked up to. And so I definitely want to bring, a lot of things to light, give it a different perspective, and to make people think again, because 98% of the people in this country are on autopilot. And that even includes the conscious community, to where they do the same thing every day in and day out. And we know that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing but expecting different results. So I have a saying that, we're in the age of smartphones but dumb people. And in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. So, these are just some of the things that I bring to light on my show, and it's some of the things that I do.
Hey, brother, I knew there was something I like about you, because I've been saying probably for the better part of 3 months, as I work with Sprint, also one of my other things I do during the day, I said, we got smartphones and stupid people. So I've said that for the longest time. People to put all their memory in a phone. I say, wait a minute, you have the ultimate computer in your brain. If the phone got that much memory, get up and walk. Don't go get it. Have the phone come to you. It should know time to come jump on my hip. I'm not trying to be facetious. I digress. But I tell people, if it's that smart, he can get up and make breakfast. No, not even close. But what I try to do, brother, as you and I talked about some of the things that's out here, we know recently a couple of things that have happened over the last month that should bring people to some type of awareness and raise their eyebrows. Now, that awareness isn't going to come easy if some people have been duped up and dumbed down. One of the things, and you had talked about it with me, probably briefly, but I know where you're coming from, is the fact that Jay-Z and Beyonce went to Cuba. We know the whole deal with Cuba. A lot of people should be doing their research, knowing why would a billionaire and his wife travel to Cuba and try to act like that's a vacation. And that he has no political ties at all in politics. And then he and her went there and started to act like, we're just sunning and funny. Really, what beach did you visit? So you got some interesting insight on that, brother. I don't want to, put my finger in the pot yet and start stirring it. I like your perspective on it. Then we'll pick up with the other couple of subjects that still has people probably scratching their head, shaking it, and probably don't know what to do with their face.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. First of all, we got to go back to Sister Assata Shakur,
right?
Who's been over in Cuba now for the last 30-something odd years. She was given political asylum by Castro and by the government of Cuba, and so there's a lot of things that happened that went into Jay-Z and Beyonce being the special envoy of President Obama and the FBI to go over and try to cut a deal for government officials to release Sister Assata in exchange for sanctions being dropped against the country of Cuba. One of the things that we got to look at, the war on drugs bill that was initiated by Ronald Reagan. Ever since that bill was initiated, the incarceration rate for African American males has gone up, has increased 500%. We know now that the prison industrial complex, that all of the prisons in this country, they're basically owned, run, and controlled by two privately held corporations that are publicly traded on Wall Street. The war on drugs generates over $1 trillion every year for Homeland Security, the FBI, CIA, and local law enforcement. Okay, so there's a big push now by some people to end the war on drugs bill that has caused the rise in the incarceration rate of African American males, primarily because of the widespread sale and use of crack cocaine during the era of the 80s and early 90s. And so now, because of that, what the FBI did, the FBI went to Obama and said, you know what, we know that you're under pressure. You're under pressure to end this war on drugs bill. But this is what we want to do. We're going to up the bounty on, we're going to make you look good. So we're going to up the bounty on Assata Shakur's head from $1 million to $2 million. We want you to send your boy Jay-Z and his girl over there, and to get them to try to secretly broker a deal with the Cuban authorities for them to release Sister Assata, and in exchange, you would drop the sanctions on Cuba, and we would be able to continue our war on drugs, which is not just a war on drugs in America, but it's not a war on drugs, period. It's a war on people of African descent, which spreads all the way to Central South America and even the Caribbean. And so black men today, we still have not internalized that COINTELPRO is alive and in full effect. It is alive and well. COINTELPRO did not die with J. Edgar Hoover, okay? Because right. COINTELPRO is not a person, but it is a system. And what was the goal of COINTELPRO? To stop the rise of a black messiah. Okay, so now let's look at what happened. Let's look at what happened with popular culture in the 70s, because before 1970s, black people looked up to people like Martin and Malcolm, Hewitt, Stokely, Kwame Nkrumah, and the list goes on and on. Well, after 1970, here comes the black exploitation era of Hollywood, now promoting the pimp, the dope dealer, and the hustler. So now, and then here comes the influx of cheap drugs in the community, because pre-1970, there was no such thing as cheap dope in the community. Only people who could afford drugs was entertainers and athletes. But now you have a widespread distribution of heroin in the community. It went from heroin to crack cocaine, and now today, we got all sorts of drugs that are permeating the black community. And so now, like I say, they make over $1 trillion annually on the war on drugs, because they are proliferating it. And now with the prison industrial complex, who owns stock in these privately held prisons? Judges, district attorneys, politicians, police officers, all own stock in these privately held prisons. Well, that's a direct conflict of interest, because how are you going to go about the business of serving justice when you profit off of a people's incarceration? So there was a lot of interesting things, like I say, going on with the whole Jay-Z. And now look at it. Ever since when he came back from Cuba, what happened? He announced that he was starting a sports agency. Now look at all of the athletes that have jumped ship to his sports agency. All of the athletes that he signed now, that was his reward. Just like if we go back 11 years ago now, when Jay-Z sold out Murder Inc., sold out Rockefeller, sold out Death Row. When he sold them out, his reward, they made him president of Def Jam. They made Damon Dash and Kareem Biggs sell him Rockaware and Rockefeller Records for a combined total of $44 million, and he turned around and sold it for $206 million. And so now Kareem Biggs, one of the founders of Rockefeller, is doing 40 years Fed time. Damon Dash is dead broke. And so now, because go back to that era, black record labels were dominating the airwaves. You had Murder Inc., you had Rockefeller, you had Death Row, you had Rap-A-Lot in Houston. They were dominating the airwaves, and they systematically took all of those black record labels down. And Jay-Z was used as a pawn. And his reward, they gave him 0.11% ownership in the New Jersey Nets, made him president of Def Jam, gave him ownership of a soccer team overseas, and just gave him so many rewards. So, but like I say, most people, they are blinded to these facts, and so they look at Jay-Z as some type of savior or messiah, figure, or somebody to be emulated in the black community.
Well, brother, with all of that said, and I know in my research I got a couple of DVDs here about him being down with the Baphomens, the Illuminati, then that Sasha Fierce thing with Beyonce, and the whole fact that Assata Shakur, formerly Joanne Chesimard of the Black Panthers, we know at that point, back with the breakfast program, the Panthers, the most dangerous thing they could do was feed young black children. So when they took out Huey,
right,
and then they did Fred Hampton in, and they had Eldred even go overseas and start making pottery, they totally dumbed him down, and Bobby Seale is probably the only one who had any sense. So everything you're saying swings back to how Jay-Z and everything he's done, and he's talking about 99 Problems, right? We understand him pimping his wife, and I've said this before. He pimps his wife. At what point do you stop making your wife pull her, whether her dress up or her clothing, to where she's exposing everything? She's a mother now. Or is she with Blue Ivy? That's a whole other conversation. With the baby that was, that isn't, that still hasn't been seen in public yet. Blue Ivy, I wonder. So here we go with the ghost child and how they just miraculously appear on the island of Cuba to try to sanction, again, to get our sister out. And the reason I wanted you to entertain that, because a lot of our people won't connect the dots when people start dying, and how all of a sudden Aaliyah was off the planet, Ron Brown, certain deaths that happened by airplane, and these people are no longer seen. So when mysterious deaths happen, whether it's an entertainer, certain singers just fall off the planet and die, they had some type of lung disease. I always question when Luther passed, Teddy, all these people dying in their 50s and early 60s. Very strange to me. So when I look at the fact, what were they singing and what were they saying? Remember when Pimp C got taken off the planet? That whole situation, a lot of people don't get the fact that these entertainers, Pimp C, I mean, even his name, it made people go, well, he was a pimp. Get past that.
No. Pimp C was taken out actually 2 weeks after he did an interview where he called out the ritual that these rappers go through as far as, when they get initiated, as far as, going behind the door, Yeah, exactly. The homosexual activity. It was exactly 2 weeks after that interview that he got taken out.
And it won't stop. And here we are now discussing this on not only my show but your show. And when you put it in people's face, whether on the air or in the street, my brother, whether you go right to them and say, look, I can show you this, do the research, connect the dots, even going back to what we said, Hajj Malik El-Shababzz grandson, Malcolm Shabazz, how he was taken out in Mexico. For some strange reason, he's traveling, and all of a sudden he doesn't make it back to his destination. He gets beat to death. And the person he was with says, all of a sudden, they took him to a place. They didn't beat his butt, but he goes back to the person he's with, and he's mangled.
Well, what's interesting is when Malcolm Shabazz, when he tried to go to Iran, he was detained by the FBI. Okay?
Right.
Now, Cynthia McKinney had to go get him, okay? Because at first the FBI would not tell anybody of his whereabouts. They wouldn't give anybody any information. Now, isn't it strange that the same week that Malcolm Shabazz was murdered in Mexico, who else was in Mexico at the same time? President Barack Obama and the Secret Service.
Exactly.
They were there the same exact time. And so the gentleman who hosted him, just look at his report. He said he left him in the club. Now, if there's an altercation getting ready to go down, why would you leave? Why would you leave him? He left the club, and he said when he got back, Malcolm Shabazz was severely beaten, and he was laying on the ground. Okay, so if you knew something was about to go down, why would you leave? Okay, that was a complete and total setup. And see, we have to understand that even in his travels, as he was getting ready to go to Iran, there's some family secrets. There's some family secrets here because I can go into who Obama's real father is.
You know what? I already got that DV2 that he is Malcolm's son. And watch people's cat piece peel back and go, what did he say? We could break it down the year he was born, the white woman that he was dating at the time, and how that child came about. He has no genetic. No, you go ahead and break it down, brother. Let him know. We got about half hour. I ain't scared. You know how they say. Let him know, man. And because people go, nah, there's no way. Because the mind would be in shock to look at that little short African brother, look at the white woman, and then try to connect the genealogy. But look who he looks closer to. Break it down to him, brother.
Exactly. Well, first of all, the brother from Kenya, his supposed father, he was brought here through a student exchange program sponsored by the Nation of Islam in 1959. Number one. That's the first fact, okay? This is a man that Obama met only once in his entire life at a chance meeting in the airport. Now Obama writes a book called Dreams of My Father. Fool, you never knew that man from Kenya who stood only 5'7" tall, and you're 6'2.5". Okay? Now, Malcolm X at the time, he met Barack's mother in Seattle while he was building a mosque in Seattle. And like I said, I know, man, people who have deified our leaders, just like we deified Dr. King, deified Malcolm, people have problems with this type of information. Okay? Now, in 1960, which is when Malcolm met, Barack's mother, as he was building a mosque in Seattle, Washington, and now, in 1963, when Malcolm X revealed Elijah Muhammad's extramarital affairs, it was Captain Yusuf Shaw of Mosque Number 7 in Harlem who said in a secret meeting, he said, Malcolm, he said, how dare you expose the messenger's extramarital affairs when we know you have an illegitimate son out there? Okay, and now all you have to do is connect the dots. Who was Malcolm X's attorney? Percy Sutton, who was the first black mayor of the borough, one of the 5 boroughs. Now, who helped raise Barack Obama? 3 men helped raise Barack Obama. Percy Sutton, Frank Davis, and Dr. Khalid Al-Mansour. And it was Dr. Khalid Al-Mansour who actually wrote Obama's acceptance letter for him to get into Harvard University. And so now when you look at, if you put Malcolm and Barack side by side, Malcolm was 6'3" tall, Barack is 6'2.5". Okay? Biologically and genetically, I mean, they almost look like twins. But you want to try to tell me that this 5'7" brother who comes from a tribe in Kenya where the men are no taller than 5'8", you want to tell me that he's his biological father? Okay, and so now there's a lot of things. There are a lot of things that are happening. So our take on it was that Malcolm Shabazz was going to expose some family secrets, so in effect he had to be taken out, and this is why he was lured to Mexico. And they took that brother out. And so now that there's some interesting things going on, because we know that Obama was handpicked and he was selected, not elected, but selected twice to be president of these United States to bring about the new world order, which we are presently in right now.
Exactly. Now, anybody who has an issue wrapping their mind around that, because again, once you've put a program in your mind that this has to be the person they gave you, just like they gave you Jesus, and the imaging, even if people say, well, we know he was black, the image of that white Jesus still is somewhere dormant in their brain. So even if they put a black Jesus in there and somebody goes, well, Jesus was Ptolemy Saltaire, and they got issues to show that, people are going to go, no, I don't want to process any other truth. It's too dangerous for me to go out like that. So for somebody to process Barack Obama being the son of Malcolm X, knowing he was born in 1961, 4 years almost before Malcolm was taken out, you can't imagine that because they wasn't going to. Remember, Malcolm had 5 daughters and no recorded sons. So eventually they knew who was a great orator. Malcolm was the first great orator our people ever heard. Now, some 45 years later, you bring forth this man, and you say, well, here's somebody you could look up to. Well, you know, it was really 43 if you go from 65 to 2008. But he came out during the Democratic National Convention. But if you really, and I have this, what is it, the Obama Deception. If people get that DVD, I don't know if you saw that, my brother. If you get the Obama Deception, Phil Valentine also has another one, and I have it. It talks about royalty and how the family breaks down. Phil Valentine shows a side-by-side of Malcolm and Obama, and they show the genetic features almost morphing together, and people can go, you could do that with anybody. I say, no, look at the skull structure, the phrenology. And most people don't know. We as Africans, people try to relate to the name, like if they say Cosrell, who are you related to? Say, no, look at his face. Who's his African genome? Don't say Wallace Durham. Who you with? No. Who's my African genome? I've seen more people in the street that I know are my cousins by genome and genetic code than by name on a paper. By the way, your birth certificate is your slave manifesto, because passing through birth as you dock and port, you know all of that, brother. People do your research. You know that you actually bought and sold at birth. When your mother signs the name over, you're signed into the state. But what you just said, brother, will make a lot of people have to go, wait a minute. That's a little bit too far out there. And this is what I was saying before you came on, brother, good segue, is that when you put this in somebody's face, to even consider it, part of their energy to go, wait, first I got to consider if Jay-Z's working with the government with Beyonce and they just was on vacation, then I got to consider that they actually murdered Malcolm Shabazz on purpose. Then I got to consider, well, you got to consider most of the deaths that they reported to you were setups. In the 60s, it was a time to kill everybody. They killed their own. When Malcolm even said chickens come home to roost, he was saying all the killing y'all done, it's turning back on y'all. So what we have to consider as Africans, we have to consider all this information that is being reported to you. Ask yourself, why would they make it just go away? I said when the bombings happened, after they killed that Russian and his brother got shot in the throat or whatever, that story gonna die down. Then here's the next story, a hurricane tornado. Then here's the next story, things in Texas. Then here's another story, rice and letters. What the government doesn't want to do is get you to think. If you think, and you you have a cross-section of a brain, brother, on your Blog Talk Radio when you go uncovering the dark fields. The dark fields, and this is just me interpreting, is the dark fields of your brain. Am I right?
That's correct, brother. That's the 80%. That's what they call the subconscious, but we know it's the superconscious mind that records everything. And so, the dark fields is actually that's the part of the brain that they tell us that we can't access, but we know because of melanin, which permeates 80% of the universe, what they call dark matter. We can access the Akashic records anytime we will please. And so now this whole thing last year was a very interesting year. We entered. It was the year of the Black Dragon, according to the Chinese zodiac. We entered the Draco constellation on December 21st last year. The Draco constellation contains a third of the stars. This year, we're in the year of the Snake, which is the Kundalini rising. So this is why now they have sped up their weapons of mass distraction, so that people would not connect with this new energy, this new vibration that is hitting the planet, because now we're in the age of Lucifer. And Lucifer was a female and not a male. Lucifer and Satan were made the same people in the 14th century, but those are two different deities. So now being in the age of Aquarius, which is a feminine energy, the age of Lucifer, this is the age of reason and the age of light, but yet they're continuing their program of dumbing the masses of the people down. And so now this is why I tell people, I say that as Marcus Garvey said, when they sentenced him right here in Atlanta, Georgia, and he served 3 years in prison, he said that I will see you in the whirlwind, okay? Right. Knowing that we are not our bodies. Our bodies are a vehicle whereby that eternal spirit works his magic. But they've gotten people of African descent so far away from our original science, and they're using our science to okie-doke us. Because the Baphomet just means one who's been immersed in all knowledge and all wisdom. So they're actually using our science, and this is why even Jay-Z and Kanye's last album, Watch the Throne. Where did they record it at? It was recorded in Australia. What is the nickname for Australia? The land down under, or the underworld. If you talk to the Aborigines in Australia, they will tell you that the god Osiris dwells in the snake mounds. But Jay-Z recorded, that's the first time he ever recorded an album sitting down in the same posture as Osiris. And Beyonce Sasha Fierce, which is another name for Isis, she's supposed to be Isis, and Kanye was supposed to be Horus, which is why he wears a Horus piece around his neck. So these people, they are actually invoking our deities while like Malcolm said, while pulling the cover, pulling the cloak over our eyes. And so now it is time for us to illuminate those dark fields so that our people will know that the real power lies within us.
Oh, most definitely, brother. And those who don't know Horus and Isis, that precedes your Jesus, the whole thing. And, just do some research, Asar and Aset, and when we try to tell people, and we've done a lot of shows here on Harambe, brother, centering around religion and how people are being duped up every Sunday when they go in and tithe and the pimp in the pulpit. Oh, did I say that? Pastor, same thing. when he's getting you to voluntarily tithe, pay your taxes on Sunday, same thing. And
that's right.
People just don't get the fact that they are tied to the one source, the natural order of the universe, Ma'at, the 42 principles and beyond. We have governed that, and Ma'at is a feminine principle as well. When you look at the wings of Isis, the wings of Ma'at, and you start looking at the natural principles that come from truth, justice, balance, reciprocity, and order. And when we tell people, the statement, I'm 55, brother. I remember when I was growing up, people would always say up in the Boogie Down Bronx, man, you out of order. And I used to hear that and go, what? That was just a slang, one of the slangs that they use, you out of order. And they meant order of the universe. And a lot of the statements and the things we used then, we didn't know it would come back now to mean something. When we called somebody blood, it wasn't a gang member. You were talking about being tied to the blood. When you said, yo, that's a cool cat. We are cat people, brother. Hamza does an extensive overview of that of us as cat people. So when we say he's a cool cat, we chose the panther, this was all set up for us to see ourselves as higher forms, melanated people. And it's interesting you talked about the pimp and the drug dealer. I told people from Shaft to Superfly to the Mac, I was a black exploitation studying person, even when I was watching it. After I got out of high school, I went to college, and I was in the Black Student Union, I used to tell people, you know who Superfly was? They said, yeah, his name was Ron O'Neal. I said, no, that was Priest. I said, what was Superfly? They said, that was him. I said, no, that was the drug. Remember what Eddie said to him in the apartment? He said, we got some Superfly sugar honey iced tea for the sake of the radio station.
That's right.
And he told him that we could deal this in quantities. So people keep getting Superfly, Ron O'Neal, mixed up with a character, but it was the drug. Shaft. If you look at the word, when they say people get screwed, they got the what? Shaft. I tell people, think about that. John Shaft. And he was working to save Bumpy's daughter, but he's had sex with a white woman in the shower. So he was a womanizer. Exactly. He had a beautiful woman. She never had more of a role but to make love to him and help him after he got shot. Why is that important, brother? Because when we put these black exploitation up, just like the rap music, the garbage music today, people don't see that the hidden messages in movies, in song, it excites our melanin because they know, they study us. Believe me, Sigmund Freud and his id, ego, superego, analytic stages of development while he was sniffing cocaine, because I studied Freud in college. My minor was psychology. This guy, German, just like your IQ test, that was developed by the Germans to see the intelligent quotient of the people who they were going to murder, the Jews. So that came from Germany, just like the word ghetto. Ghetto was what they used to go ahead and single out the Jews, because the Jews were masquerading as other races. So a lot of the things we take for granted, they was already put in line to keep us in our own caged mind. The project. You're a science project. They would build something 19 stories high, keep you away from the sun, have you play on some monkey bars, steel, and that turtle that could crack your forehead. So a lot of people don't know, and I'm not digressing here. I'm going back to the point. Everything you said about Jay-Z and Beyonce, what they're doing to our sister Assata Shakur, and what's happened to our brother Malcolm Shabazz. And there's even reports that he didn't burn Betty. He had made a fire, and she came through the fire and got burned while he set a fire just being mysterious. He didn't try to murder her. She died trying to go back in the house. So people got him being a killer from a child, so now that he's murdered, they go, well, that he was a bad little boy when he was younger. That story didn't make sense to me, my brother. I don't know what your interpretation of it was.
It never made sense, bro.
Why would you kill your grandmother?
Exactly.
Raised Muslim. Let me kill my grandmother. I'm stupid. I think he was like 12 then or something, 11 or 12.
Yep, and 12 years old. That's right.
So all of these things that people get as information, we got to go ahead and make sure that it's coming in from them. We got to make it outformation and make sure that we connect the dots and put things in perspective and truth. But, so I try to hope people see that when you speak, my brother, whether in person, and I know you as a motivational speaker, have people come up to you after one of your lectures and say, hey, my brother, you were a little hard on whoever, whatever, and how you brought it? Because I've had people do that to me in silence. I say, were you offended? No, but some people in the thing, because you were talking about the black man leaving the family. Some brothers couldn't help it, man. The court. I said, no, everybody can help it. The court can tell you to pay till you go broke, but you should never divorce your children. If you divorce your wife, don't divorce them children. It's your responsibility for them to know who you are. And I wrote a book about that called Don't Forget to Write Home. This man, it's a fiction, raised his children from inside a prison over 15 years writing letters. So I don't give a brother a break when he leaves his children. I think one of the worst things, we can always talk about problems, but if we don't look towards solutions and start with ourselves, we can't blame this white dominator. We can't blame the Asians. We can't blame the Indians. We have to say, wait, let's clean up our house, then say, now we have the right to stand in the gap and tell you to get back, or it's going to be problems, repercussions, and consequences, because we are now a family that stands strong enough to believe what we do, and we got a track record to show we're unified, and we have resources where we could use people like Jay-Z, Oprah, Bill Cosby, Michael Jordan, you name your entertainer who's exceeding multiple $1 million that will back somebody like Chokwe Lumumba or anybody else who could be an attorney for any problems or the social ills we may have beyond Trayvon Martin, Oscar Grant, Michael Stewart, Sean Bell, who've been killed, the Scott sisters. We'll show that we have such an economic front. If you mess with us, there will be hell to pay, and we own a station to be able to tell you we're going to put it on the network. That's when we have power, and I would hope that we work towards getting that power, my brother, because I do believe that is really illuminating the dark fields that some people are hiding behind.
We'll see. One of the things is that I talk about in one of my workshops is that we're the only community that shines a light on individuals. When it comes to success, when it comes to speaking in success, we say, oh, we got Oprah, We got Bill Cosby. We got Michael Jordan. I say, but everybody else has successful communities. I say, but black folk have successful individuals. And I say, this is because when we get into the intricacies of COINTELPRO, we really have to get it. We really have to do our research. Okay, back during the 50s and 60s. Okay, the original OGs, people like Bumpy Johnson and others. Guess what? Most people don't know Bumpy Johnson paid for Malcolm X's funeral, and he was the one who forced that church to hold the funeral, to hold the funeral procession there at his church, because when Malcolm got assassinated, no church in Harlem wanted to host the funeral because of the tension between Malcolm's organization and the Nation of Islam. So it was Bumpy Johnson who not only paid for Malcolm's funeral, but he told that church, he said, wait a minute. He said, this man is a hero in the black community. He said, I don't care what kind of tension is going on between his organization and the Nation of Islam. He said, this man has got to be honored and be respected. So now, how many, because in every community, you got the visionaries, then you have those that finance the vision. The black community, we're the only community that asks our visionaries to finance their own vision. In other communities, they have what they call think tanks. Now, let's go all the way back to the 1700s at the founding of Yale University. Yale University was named after the most notorious drug dealer ever in history, Elihu Yale, who put up the money for Yale University. This man, he's the one who weakened China and Asia with the opium trade, but he has a university named, the most prestigious university in this country, named after him, because he knew that his role was to come up with the money, because every corporation in this country was started with dirty money, what they call dirty money, okay? And so, and all they do, they wash it, and so now they become the moral authority. Black people, we're the only people who we don't put the responsibility on the people who have access to capital, such as athletes, entertainers, who have dope dealers, pimps, who have access to capital through this capitalistic system. We're the only people who don't put the pressure and put responsibility on them to give the money to the intellectuals or the visionaries. So that, because gangsters deal with the world the way it is, but intellectuals deal with it the way that it could be. But in our community, we never get that opportunity or that chance, because our entertainers and athletes are too busy spending $2 million at the strip club,
making it rain. And you see, you know how many people didn't know where that name Yale came from, or any other names that they look up, like the bar exam. Most people don't know that's British Accredited Registry. You still uplifting London, who you claim you wanted to be free from when you had, Independence Day, free from Britain. London, Britain, same thing. The Queen of England is the richest woman in America. I say it again, the Queen of England, the richest woman in America, who is not here. She has her hands on everything, and how the presidents are all linked in bloodline to her. It gets really deep when you ask people to go back and do some research. It's almost like picking up a hot plate. You know how you don't have a pot holder and you pick up a hot plate? It's going to burn, so you have to put it down to take your time and pick it up. Or when something's hot, you try to drink it, that soup is too hot. Some people like the truth served cold. They want to know, hey, yeah, I want it to go down easy like Kool-Aid. They don't want to deal with the hot truth or the sun in your face, because that's too much to stomach to go, well, if that's true, why are we all living like this? Because if you buck this system, you got a bullet with your name on it aimed at your forehead. So there are going to be some people they allow to buck, some people they're going to let in the system. Jack Johnson, I did a show on this years ago about, didn't you ask yourself why during the time Birth of a Nation came out, they didn't shoot that man in his head while he was dating white women? He was their black buck. He was their mandingo. He was their cash cow. But then they put out the Mann Act to go ahead and get him back overseas. So there are a lot of things when you do your research and say, well, they would go hang three brothers in Town Square 200 deep and take pictures with them without sanctuary. The book will show you that. So, my brother, you and I are going to have to do a part 2 of this. I'm going to ask you this straight up. Your show comes on what day?
It comes on every Friday at noon Eastern.
Noon Eastern. It's called Illuminating the Dark Fields.
Yeah, Illuminating the Dark Fields.
Any email or any contact information my family can get from you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Email is my full name, josephcarswell@gmail.com. And they can reach out to me on there. They can look me up on Facebook, befriend me on Facebook. And you know, I have CDs and DVDs and, actually all of my radio programs are recorded. So, they can actually go back and listen to, you know, every last one of my shows. Because like I say, every Friday we try to bring it, and we try to come with the most relevant information out there. And I just want to say one last thing.
Sure, bro.
President Bush never sent any drones to Africa, never attacked any African country, never dropped any bombs on Africa. But guess what? To all the Obamaholics, we cannot say the same about Brother Obama.
He killed brown people.
That's right.
Me and Brother Delani said that all the time. This is what I want you to do, brother. If you can hold it true, we got about a minute and a half. Next week is Business Monday. I don't have a scheduled guest. I may talk Brother Dub Deuce the poet, who you've met, who you know, to come on and join us. He said he wanted to give you this energy with me because of how we think. But I'd like to have you back on next week for part 2. Is that a good deal?
Oh, brother, that's a deal. Let's make it happen.
I just wanted to make sure I got your permission with that, brother, because this type of knowledge, to me, when it's a quick hit, it's almost like a mental drug we need. This is not a placebo. This is the real thing.
Yes.
And when you give somebody the real thing, you want them to be healed. And I want to keep giving people healing. We don't want to give them placebos. We don't want to give them nothing fake. And by you giving me the permission that you will come on next week, brother, I'll go ahead and say that's an honor and a pleasure and a privilege for me to be able to say that you'll be back on Business Monday next week. Harambe Radio and Television family, you've heard Brother Joseph Carswell. Check him out Fridays on Blog Talk, Illuminating the Dark Fields. My brother, it's been a pleasure, and I know you're going to be part of the family now. Am I right?
Yes, sir, brother. Most definitely. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's going to happen again next week, family. It's on. Join us at www.haramberadio.com. Sister Gwen Mack coming up in the 11 o'clock hour. Get ready for Blues Monday with Brother Marshall Wilkerson. Hotep. Ashe.